Hello and welcome to episode 14 of the Kalopa Mission Control Podcast. I am your host, and it is a profound privilege to welcome you back to our quiet, observant corner of the maritime world. Whether you are listening to this while watching the first frost of the season gather on a cold window pane, or perhaps sitting on a porch as the last lingering light of dusk turns the evening sky a bruised, beautiful shade of purple, I invite you to pause. Take a deep, slow breath. Let the tension in your shoulders fall away and allow the relentless, demanding cacophony of the modern world to simply fade into the background. Here, in this auditory sanctuary, we do not measure our time by the frantic ticking of a clock or the urgent glow of a screen. Instead, we measure it by the ancient, eternal breathing of the tides. We gather to track the meticulous, patient engineering of Kalopa Robotics and to marvel at the vast, complex and deeply poetic expanse of our blue planet. When we speak of protecting the ocean, we often speak in terms of maps. We draw invisible geometric lines across nautical charts, shade them in blue or green, and declare them sanctuaries. But the ocean is a fluid, endlessly dynamic medium. It does not recognize our borders, nor does it respect our boundaries. A sobering study recently published in the Marine Pollution Bulletin has illustrated this reality with heartbreaking clarity. Researchers examined 3 highly protected marine spaces in the Canary Islands, Tenorasca in Tenerife, the marine strip of Mogon in Gran Canaria, and the Cebadales of Corralejo in Fuerteventura. These areas were specifically established to safeguard fragile populations of sea turtles and cetaceans. Yet, the scientists discovered that these sanctuaries are chronically inundated with marine debris, specifically abandoned fishing gear. And crucially, this waste does not originate from the local islands. Driven by the relentless push of Atlantic currents and prevailing winds, the debris, tangled nets, heavy monofilament lines and degraded raffia bags is carried across the ocean from the northwestern coast of Africa. The impact on local wildlife is severe. Sea turtles, with their long migratory paths and curious nature, are incredibly vulnerable to floating objects. The study found that entanglement in this drifting ghost gear accounts for 45% of the risks faced by turtles in these supposedly safe havens. It is a stark reminder that we cannot simply draw a line around a patch of ocean and consider it saved. The currents that bring life-giving nutrients also bring the consequences of our actions. Protecting a space requires us to understand the ocean as a single, unified, and deeply interconnected system. Yet, when we do manage to give the ocean the peace and stillness it requires, its capacity for forgiveness is nothing short of miraculous. Consider the story of Parque Nacional Cabo Pulmo, located near the southern tip of the Baja California Peninsula in Mexico. In the 1980s, this region was an ecological ruin. Relentless overfishing and destructive practices had left the coral ecosystem barren and silent. But in 1995, driven by the sheer determination of the local community, a ban on commercial fishing was established and the area was declared a national park. Today, Cabo Pulmo is widely celebrated as one of the most triumphant tales of marine revival on Earth. If you were to dive into its gin-clear waters today, you would not find a barren wasteland. You would find a thriving underwater metropolis. The reef pulses with life. Vibrant corals in electric blues and yellows sway in the upwelling currents. The waters hum with the clicks of snapping shrimp and the swirling silver tornadoes of massive jackfish schools. Most remarkably, Cabo Pulmo has become a hotspot for apex predators. It is home to resident silky sharks and seasonal whale sharks, their massive silhouettes cutting through the emerald green water columns. Scientific studies have shown that since the protections were put in place, the fish biomass in the park has rebounded by an astonishing 463%. It is living, breathing proof that even a decimated ecosystem can heal, provided we have the wisdom to step back and let nature do her work. To replicate the magnificent success of Cabo Pulmo on a global scale, the international community has committed to protecting 30% of the world's ocean by the year 2030. It is a monumental task, but in recent weeks we have seen some truly breathtaking leaps forward. In the freezing, remote waters of the Southern Ocean, the Australian government has just announced a massive expansion of the Macquarie Island Marine Park. They have almost tripled the size of the sanctuary, bringing it to an immense 475,000 square kilometres. This isolated sub-Antarctic realm is a vital haven for royal penguins, elephant seals, and black-browed albatrosses. Under the new legislation, 93% of this vast park is designated as a strict no-take zone, prohibiting all commercial fishing and seabed mining, ensuring these ancient feeding grounds remain pristine. Meanwhile, in the warm tropical heart of the Coral Triangle, Papua New Guinea has made its own historic declaration. At the inaugural Melanesian Ocean Summit, the government announced the creation of the Western Manus Marine Protected Area, covering roughly 200,000 square kilometres of the Bismarck Sea, an area nearly the size of the United Kingdom. This new sanctuary is entirely off limits to fishing. The Western Manus region is a masterpiece of submarine geography. It features deep-sea canyons, towering underwater mountains, and steep ridges that create a marine highway, connecting the sunlit shallow reefs to the absolute darkness of the abyss. This highway supports a staggering array of life, from scalloped hammerheads and spinner dolphins to deep-diving Cuvier's beaked whales. Recent expeditions even discovered the colossal Yokozuna slickhead, a deep-sea species never before recorded in these waters. By protecting these vast interconnected habitats, Papua New Guinea is not just saving fish, they are securing the food supply for their coastal communities. Science has repeatedly shown that massive, strictly protected reserves create a spillover effect. The protected zones become so abundant with life that fish literally overflow into the surrounding unprotected waters, increasing catch rates for local sustainable fishers by up to 18%. It is a beautiful synergy of ecological preservation and human survival. However, establishing these massive sanctuaries is only half the battle. The true test lies in what activities we permit within their borders. For decades, industrial bottom trawlers have dragged heavy weighted nets across the European seafloor. A groundbreaking peer-reviewed study recently backed by National Geographic has finally quantified the true staggering cost of this practice. By pooling data from nearly 5,000 European flagged trawlers, researchers calculated that bottom trawling imposes up to €16 billion in net costs to society every single year. The vast majority of this cost comes from the violent churning of the seabed. When heavy nets scrape across the ocean floor, they release carbon dioxide that has been safely locked in the marine sediment for centuries. European trawlers alone are responsible for injecting over 100 million tonnes of carbon dioxide into the atmosphere annually. Compare that €16 billion societal cost to the profits actually generated by the industry, a mere €180 million. As the researchers bluntly stated, it is not just an environmental disaster, it is a profound economic failure. Frighteningly, nearly a quarter of all this destructive trawling takes place inside Europe's designated marine protected areas. Armed with this undeniable data, Greece is taking bold, decisive action. They are moving to become the first country in Europe to completely ban bottom trawling in all of their marine protected areas by 2030. This includes the newly established permanent sanctuary around the uninhabited islet of Giaros in the Cyclades. Giaros is a critical fragile habitat for the endangered Mediterranean monk seal and the vulnerable Yelkuan shearwater seabird. Banning the heavy scraping nets of the trawlers will give the Posidonia seagrass meadows and the deep coral gardens of the Aegean the peace they so desperately need to recover. The challenge that links the drifting ghost nets of the Canary Islands, the vast new sanctuaries of Papua New Guinea, and the trawling bans of Greece is the immense difficulty of monitoring the open ocean. The sea is vast, it is often hostile, and it effortlessly conceals the activities of those who wish to exploit it, which brings us to the very heart of what we do here at Kalopa Robotics. If you were to step through the heavy acoustic doors of our mission control room today, you would find the space bathed in a quiet ambient glow. The primary telemetry screens, usually scrolling with live satellite data, are currently dark. We have no active missions at sea right now. Our fleet of 2.4-metre autonomous sailboats is resting safely in the engineering workshop. The boats smell faintly of dried salt and marine epoxy. Their bright yellow hulls are being meticulously inspected, their solar arrays polished, and their navigation brains recalibrated. While our fleet is safely in dry dock, it grants us a rare, quiet moment to reflect on the rapidly evolving world of maritime robotics. The global maritime industry is currently waking up to a reality that our community of engineers has understood for over a decade: the profound advantage of wind-powered autonomy. Just this week, industry news highlighted the unveiling of a 52-metre autonomous ship designed specifically for hunting submarines. Built by a major defence contractor, this massive drone relies on the unique properties of a sailing hull. A sailboat has no heavy vibrating diesel engine. It generates almost no underwater noise. It is acoustically transparent. The defence industry is using this absolute silence to listen for the faint mechanical hum of submarines lurking in the depths. Here at Kalopa, we harness that exact same acoustic stealth, but for a very different purpose. We use the absolute silence of our 2.4-metre boats to listen to the natural symphony of the sea. Because our boats make no engine noise, their onboard hydrophones can record the pristine, uninterrupted songs of migrating humpback whales or detect the distinct, grinding acoustic signature of an illegal bottom trawler operating under the cover of darkness inside a sanctuary like Gaiaros. But to maintain that silent vigil, a robotic vessel must be able to survive the unforgiving violence of the open ocean for months at a time. When you look at the Kalopa vessels sitting in our workshop today, you are looking at the proud descendants of the Microtransat Challenge. For those who might be new to the podcast, the Microtransat Challenge is a transatlantic race for fully autonomous boats under 4 meters in length. It was conceived over a decade ago by visionary academics who believed that friendly, brutal competition was the best way to stimulate the development of maritime robotics. In previous episodes, we have discussed the self-righting hulls and the encapsulated electronics born from this race, but today I want to draw your attention to the most distinctive feature of our vessels: the sail. If you picture a sailboat, you likely imagine a triangular sheet of white cloth billowing in the wind, controlled by a complex web of ropes, pulleys, and winches. In the early pioneering days of the Microtransat, university students tried to automate these traditional cloth sails. They installed heavy electric winch motors to pull the ropes and wrote complex code to adjust the sail trim. The ocean destroyed them. Salt water corroded the winch motors. The constant, violent flapping of the cloth in a gale would chafe the ropes until they snapped or tear the sails to ribbons. A sudden, unpredictable 60-knot squall could easily overpower the small steering motors, knocking the tiny boats flat into the freezing Atlantic swells. Through years of heartbreak and collective innovation, the Microtransat community realized that to survive the sea, you cannot fight it with complex, fragile machinery. You must adapt to it with elegant simplicity. We abandoned cloth sails and ropes entirely. Instead, our boats are fitted with a rigid wing sail, constructed from carbon fibre and composite foam. It looks exactly like the wing of an airplane, standing vertically on the deck. But the true genius of this design is that the wing is completely free rotating. It is not locked into place. Attached to the back of the wing is a small tail vane, much like the feathers on an arrow. We do not use a heavy, power-hungry motor to pull the sail. Instead, a tiny, highly efficient microservo simply adjusts the angle of the tail vane. The wind hits the tail vane and the aerodynamic pressure gently, naturally pushes the massive main wing into the perfect angle of attack to drive the boat forward. Our telemetry data from past missions shows the sheer brilliance of this passive system. When one of our boats is caught in a violent storm, the navigation brain senses the dangerous wind speeds. It simply commands the tail vane to point straight back. The rigid wing instantly aligns itself completely parallel to the wind. It feathers like a weather vane. The boat is entirely depowered. A hurricane-force gust can howl across the deck, and the wing simply lets the wind slip past, harmless and unresisted. It requires almost zero electrical power. There are no ropes to snap and no cloth to tear. It is a masterpiece of passive mechanical engineering born from the brutal crucible of the North Atlantic. This elegant, resilient technology is the bridge between the ambitious promises of global conservation and the messy reality of enforcing them. Imagine a fleet of Kalopa boats, equipped with rigid wing sails, deployed to the vast newly protected waters of the Macquarie Island Marine Park in the Southern Ocean. Powered only by the fierce roaring 40s winds, they could patrol the boundaries of the sanctuary for 12 months at a time, using radar to ensure no illegal fishing fleets encroach upon the penguin feeding grounds. Imagine them gliding silently through the marine highway of the western Manus sanctuary in Papua New Guinea, collecting vital oceanographic data from the surface while remaining acoustically invisible to the deep sea life below. Or imagine them standing sentinel off the coast of the Canary Islands, tracking the exact pathways of drifting marine debris, helping local authorities intercept ghost nets before they can entangle the vulnerable sea turtles. Our engineers spend their days obsessing over the aerodynamics of a carbon fibre wing and the friction of a mast bearing. It is slow, demanding, and deeply meticulous work. But it is driven by a profound sense of purpose. The ocean is the life support system of our world. As the threats against it multiply, and as we boldly expand our sanctuaries from the reefs of Mexico to the deep canyons of the Coral Triangle, we must evolve our methods of protection. So, while our workshop remains quiet today, the work is far from paused. We are refining our code, we are testing our bearings, and we are preparing. Because when the time comes to launch our next vessel, we know that it carries more than just microchips and composite foam. It carries our collective commitment to watch over the waters that sustain us all. Thank you for sharing this time with me today. If you have enjoyed our exploration of marine conservation and the robotic technology we build to support it, please consider subscribing to the Kalopa Mission Control Podcast on your favourite platform. And if you know someone who feels that same inescapable pull toward the sea, I would be deeply grateful if you shared this episode with them. Until we meet again, may your horizons be clear, the wind be fair, and the seas be kind. Goodbye for now. Summary. In episode 14 of the Kalopa Mission Control Podcast, we explore the fluid, interconnected nature of the global ocean and the monumental efforts required to protect it. We discuss how distant fishing debris threatens marine sanctuaries in the Canary Islands and celebrate the astonishing ecological revival of Mexico's Cabo Pulmo. We also examine the massive scale of new ocean protections, from Australia's Macquarie Island to Papua New Guinea's 200,000 square kilometre western Manus Marine Protected Area, alongside Greece's historic decision to ban destructive bottom trawling. Finally, with the Kalopa fleet currently in dry dock, we reflect on the evolution of maritime robotics. Drawing inspiration from the Microtransat challenge, we explore the brilliant passive engineering of the rigid wing sail, a technology that allows our 2.4-metre autonomous boats to silently and tirelessly patrol the world's most hostile and remote marine sanctuaries.